Thanks, Matt. Now, we've been following the stories of those affected by the infected blood scandal ahead of a key report from the public inquiry next week.
Well, more than 30,000 people in the UK are thought to have been infected with HIV and hepatitis C after being given contaminated blood products during the 1970s and 1980s.
One of those people was Dame Anita Roddick, the founder of the Body Shop, who died in 2007. Tim Muffet has this report.
You don't really need it on your hair for more than sort of half an hour at all.
The Queen of Green, as she was nicknamed by some. Anita Roddick was a pioneer of business and environmental causes. She opened the first body shop in Brighton in 1976.
Our whole image is no packaging whatsoever, the minimal amount of packaging.
At a time when cosmetics were regularly tested on animals in laboratories, her cruelty-free products marked a radical change, one that caught on in a big way. The Body Shop became a familiar sight on British high streets during the 1980s. L'Oreal paid more than £650 million for the company in 2006. Anita Roddick died the following year. But 8 months before her death, she revealed she had unknowingly contracted hepatitis C in 1971 during a blood transfusion following the birth of her daughter Sam. More than 30,000 people in the UK were infected with hepatitis C and HIV after receiving contaminated blood in the 70s and 80s. Around 3,000 people are thought to have died as a result. The calls for answers, justice and compensation have grown louder and louder. Tim Muffet, BBC News.
Well, Anita's daughter, Sam Roddick, joins us this morning. Thanks so much for talking to us about something which must remain incredibly difficult, particularly at the moment when the inquiry is in the headlines day after day. Is there a sense of relief that this could come to some conclusion, or is it fresh pain each time?
Well, it's always deeply uncomfortable to talk about this aspect of my mother's life because it's so unresolved. I don't think this inquiry is going to resolve the ongoing fight to, clean up the supply chain from corporate crime and violence. But I hope it is a giant leap towards a different type of behaviour that is being made permissible within business.
Can you walk us through the impacts that it's had on you and your extended family?
Well, I think that it's quite compartmentalised for us because essentially there is so much that we celebrate about my mum's life, and in a way is buried because of the actual kind of harrowing trauma that it kind of put my mum through. So it's something that we kind of in a weird way want to bury, and in another way we have a duty to speak out about. So coming on here is really difficult because it has a reverberant effect after I've finished the interview. It's going to kind of emotionally affect me. I think my mum was an extraordinarily brave person that championed life actually because she was afraid of death, and then to find out that her life was kind of shortened in such a kind of brutal way was very traumatic for her. So that's really, as much as I can say.
Sam, good morning to you. It's Charlie here in the studio, and I think everyone listening to you will completely understand how deep this runs for you. If you don't mind, you tell us whatever you're comfortable with. Can you tell us a bit about your journey to knowing about what happened, about the scandal of what happened, specifically to your mother, and then learning more about so many more people who were affected?
Well, I think the thing is what's interesting about this is a collective injustice. This isn't just about my mother. This is about 30,000 and more people. And we have to remember the way they harvested the blood was actually a crime within itself. They used desperate people who were incarcerated. Pretty much in America, it's like indentured slavery. So where they got the blood from was in equal horror to actually who they infected. And I feel like for my mum, you know, there's also shame. Hepatitis C and HIV had a social stigma attached to it. And she was very clean living, so she didn't drink, she didn't really eat fatty foods. And my mum was super intuitive. So I should imagine like she managed her own health through like this unconscious understanding that she wasn't that well. So I found out quite late in life, and it, you know, in a way, it was like invading her privacy, asking too many questions. But there is a deep, tragic poetry to the fact that actually, you know, my mum championed corporate responsibility. She championed transparency within the supply chain. She wanted to eradicate kind of corruption, corporate corruption, and show that business could be a vehicle for social good and change. So there is this kind of, you know, brutal poetic irony attached to the fact that she got infected, the fact that her life was cut short, and actually, you know, it's like a weird haunting. Her message still stands, that's what I mean. Like, you know, it's a haunting from the fact that she's no longer here, but her message is still so vital.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sam, tell me about next week. We've spoken to a number of families like yours who've been affected, and they're grappling with all sorts of emotions, including anger and bitterness and wanting something to come out of this at the end, which gives them, maybe, I don't know, you tell me, what is it you're looking for next week? Some form of answers? What are you looking for?
I think the answers are all there. I think the accountability, like we know that the decisions were knowingly kind of ignored, but that they made decisions that were actually illegal. If you talk about on a moral perspective, I mean, corporations are permitted to behave in ways that commit manslaughter and even murder that they're not really held accountable to. Their finances are where we hold accountability to corporations, like compensation packets, but they can recover from that so easily. We need to reframe what corporations are responsible for. And this is happening across all industries. It's happening by poisoning the rivers in the Amazon, deforestation. It's happening currently within our water system right now. Corporate crime and violence has to be accountable in the same way that civil society is accountable to their crimes. And that's the step I'm hoping we get to on a collective level, that we see that actually all of our crises, climate crisis, is at the hand of bad industry, bad behaviour, bad decision making.
What we hear time and time again is about the very, very human impact, the scars that are being felt by tens of thousands of families like yours. I know you've spoken in the past that because it was via a transfusion during childbirth, you've carried guilt around that. So there are these human scars that will persist following the conclusion of the inquiry.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is you can't really equate the pain that it inflicts, and the pain isn't kind of encapsulated to a single death or a single infection. It affects the whole family orbit. It affects the friendship orbit. It affects, you know, so much in terms of its emotional impact, its psychological impact, the betrayal of trust, and also the betrayal in institutional care. And we look to our institutions as a way for us to function, but yet it's such there's so much injustice at the hands of our institutional systems. So the effect that it has is, you know, it's a personal story, but not only is it a personal story, it's a collective story, and it's a societal story, it's a civil story. And I think that we can't kind of, I think it's important to recognise like, you know, the pain it creates, but it's also important to recognise the collective impact.
Sam, we appreciate your time this morning. You can get a glass of water, have a cup of tea or something now, and we wish you well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm sure your mum will be incredibly proud of your campaigning. Thank you.